About 1 month ago, I released a video about the craziest veto meeting blindsides of all time. However, not even 3 hours later, Tucker decided to go and kickstart a series of events that would result in one of the most wild and ridiculous veto meetings that I have ever seen, which not only blindsided the majority of the House, but also completely negated the video I had just released earlier that morning. So, Tucker, thanks for that. Now I have to make a 2.0. Throughout Big Brother history, we have seen players flip the game on its head at the veto meeting and pull off a big move that left the rest of the house guests in shock, wide-eyed, and open-mouthed. If you aren't already, subscribe to the channel to help me reach 100,000 subscribers. And without further ado, for the second time, here are 5 of the craziest veto meeting blindsides in Big Brother history.
They've been blindsided. Hard. Welcome to hell, Cory in America. My name is Blue. I'll be your tour guide this week.
Kicking things off, we have an extremely unique case. That's because at this veto meeting, there were 2 vetoes in play. This blindside came at the final 8 of Big Brother 25, when Blue saved herself with the veto, Jag saved Felicia with the second veto, and then Jag secretly nominated both Cory and America, blindsiding the couple. For some background info, Jag had won the invisible HOH at the final 8, but instead of keeping it a secret, he informed his allies Matt, Cory, and America about it, and he wanted to target Blue this week. So, Jag nominated Blue and Felicia. So far, so good. Another twist was added to the week where instead of 1 veto competition, there were 2, which just added another ingredient to the chaos. Jag won the first veto, which was really no surprise, but then to slightly more surprise, Blue won the second veto. Now, Blue was obviously going to take herself off the block, so if Jag wanted to keep his hands clean of blood, he could nominate Cirie in Blue's place and just send home Felicia. This is what Cory and America were expecting, but Jag wasn't afraid of blood. Jag had his endgame plans laid out, and he wanted who he perceived to be the weakest physical players in the final 5 with him, and that did not include Blue, Cory, and America. So, now that Blue was no longer a viable option, Jag put his big boy pants on, and he took his shot. At the veto ceremony, Blue took herself off the block, and part 1 of the blindside kicked off when the invisible HOH, aka Jag, nominated America. Then, Jag took the dagger and fully submerged it into the showmance once he stood up, used the second veto on Felicia, and nominated Cory in her place. It was a big power move, catching the showmance off guard to a pretty good degree. While pretty much all the other house guests knew that this was going to happen, Cory and America didn't. And America especially let the tears flow. It's not often that 2 vetoes are offered in the same week, but when they are and the opportunity presents itself, you gotta take your shot, and Jag did just that.
Jag is claiming that he's the invisible HOH. I am super relieved. This means that Jag trusts me and Cory and that he's not coming after us.
So Blue's coming off the block, and that means a replacement nominee will be named. Jag should put me up. I don't think he's gonna do that though. I think he's gonna stick to the plan. Cirie should be the replacement, Felicia will go home, and that's fine.
It seems like everyone's really excited about this plan to blindside Cory and America this week.
I have decided to use the power of veto on myself.
Replacement nominee is America!
I have decided to use the power of veto on Mama Fee.
Replacement nominee is Cory!
They've been blindsided. Hard. I knew this day would come. I didn't think it was gonna be during Jag's HOH.
So, that's my confusion.
What the? Why? Literally why? What's going on?
Jag. Matt too.
Okay, remember how I started off the last one by saying having 2 vetoes in play was an extremely unique case? Well, I guess I lied, because this next one also had 2 vetoes in play, and that was when Frank and Jen blindsided the house by saving Dan with the veto and nominating Britney at the final 8 of Big Brother 14, aka the culmination and payoff of Dan's funeral. Frank had been the consensus house target for weeks, and Frank believed that Dan was the one who was behind this mass targeting of him. So, when Frank won the final 8 HOH, he was pretty open to everyone that his main target was Dan, and he'd go through hell and back to ensure that he was evicted. Frank went as far as to try and cheat during the veto competition in order to guarantee Dan's loss, and although this did result in Frank getting DQ'd from the challenge, Frank still got his way, and Jen, Frank's only ally left in the house, won the veto. Thanks to Pandora's Box, there was a second veto competition held this week too, but Dan lost that as well, and Ian ended up winning. So, even after 2 veto competitions, Dan was sitting on the block with no way of saving himself. Frank had everything he could ask for. His closest ally had 1 veto, and Ian, the player who had the other, had promised Frank that he wouldn't use the veto to save Dan. So Dan's fate was sealed. That is, until Dan pulled off a crazy Hail Mary. Dan gathered everyone together for his big brother funeral, where he declared himself dead in the game, but not before calling out his perceived closest ally Danielle and saying that she was also dead to him in the game. Really, this was all a ruse to confuse the house and to give him an opportunity to talk to Frank alone upstairs. During this one-on-one, Dan finally revealed that although he had been targeting Frank, he was not the one that Frank should be mad at, because Dan wasn't the one that initially leaked some information and caused everyone to turn on him. It was Ian. Dan had been holding on to this information until the time was right, and the time was right now. Against all odds, Dan had found some common ground with Frank, and the two agreed to form an alliance with themselves, Jen, and Danielle in order to go after Ian. However, they couldn't nominate Ian due to him winning the second veto, but they could nominate Ian's closest ally, Britney. So, going into the veto ceremony, most people in the house basically assumed that Dan was a goner, because there is no way that Frank would change his target at this point. Ian went first, and he chose not to use his veto, as expected. But then Jen stood up and shocked the house by using the veto to save Dan. Frank then stood up, and to close off the act, he declared to the house that Ian was the rat, but because he couldn't send him home now, he'd go after the next best thing, and he nominated Britney. Going into this week, Britney was in the best position by far. She had deals with pretty much everyone. She was super well insulated, and she was untouchable in the game. Well, practically untouchable. This veto meeting will go down in the books as one of the craziest moments of all time, and it capped off the most impressive move ever made in the Big Brother house. I teased that it should have been included last time, and now it's actually here.
I made a deal with Frank before HOH just in case he happened to win, and now that he has, I need to make sure our deal is still good.
I mean, I'm not gonna put you and Shane up. I'm gonna put Dan and Danielle up.
Jen came through big time in this veto. Not only does she want Dan out, but me dose.
There was an alliance created, not with 4 people, with 5 people.
Ian, I want him out next.
Brittany's a more dangerous player.
Would you use a veto on Dan tomorrow if I asked you to? Oh my God.
I have decided not to use the power of veto.
I have decided to use the power of veto on Dan.
Ian, you won the veto, so I can't put you up. I gotta do the next best thing. Britney, pop a squat.
I just feel really done.
What just happened?
I have no idea what just happened.
Up next, we have a rare instance of a veto meeting blindside happening because a veto wasn't used to save either nominee. And that was when Jason chose not to save either Matt or Raven at the final 8 of Big Brother 19. Jason won the HOH this week, and he nominated the couple of Matt and Raven initially. The duo was okay with being on the block, though, because they had spoken with Jason before nominations, and it was clear that the two of them would be pawns in order to backdoor Kevin. Matt and Raven hated Kevin, so they were super down to play ball and go on the block, under the notion that the veto would be used to save Raven, and Kevin would be nominated in her place. Jason ended up winning the veto as well, and a lot of the house was thrilled, because this meant that the backdoor plan could go through. But that's not the whole story. Jason actually really liked Kevin, and once he had all the power in his hands, he stopped wanting to play ball, and he told his closest allies that he wasn't putting Kevin up. They tried to convince him otherwise, and promised him that they wouldn't send Kevin home, but Jason refused, and Matt and Raven had no idea this was happening. So, once it was time for the veto meeting, Matt and Raven were expecting Jason to pull down Raven and send Kevin out. So they were shocked when Jason didn't use the veto and left the two of them on the block. Alex was pissed. Christmas was pissed. Raven was furious, and even Matt came out of his cereal cocoon to let Jason have it afterwards, which led to a very fun blow-up following all of the events. It's not often that a veto hold is a blindside, but it can be a very effective way of drawing a line in the sand, and I'm here for it.
So Raven and I get nominated, and we've been told that we're pawns and Kevin is the actual target.
Jason won the veto. I believe he's gonna pull me off. So Matt and I just need to chill out.
So I'm being pressured by Alex and Paul to take Raven down and put Kevin up. I'm just not gonna use Kevin as a pawn because he's my pal. He's not comfortable, I'm not comfortable. I'm not gonna do it.
Personally, I feel like these are tough waters to navigate inside the house. So with that being said, I've decided not to use the power of veto. But I will entertain a question from either one of you.
I don't have any questions for you, Jason.
I'm good, buddy.
Are you kidding me?
No respect there.
He knows how much his day means to me. He can take his word and shove it.
All Jason had to do was pull off Raven and put up Kevin, and everyone would have been happy. We're gonna have to fight people now.
Are you kidding me?
But obviously, he's hiding in storage.
Yes, he is. He should stay there all day.
You little punk! You're not even sticking by your decision.
No, I'm gonna stick by it right now.
Oh my God, you are such a punk bitch, dude! Oh my God, you are embarrassing yourself!
Don't tell me I'm gonna pull one of you down and then don't.
Okay, now that we've gone over those precursors, let's get to the main course. We got Tucker Part 1 and Tucker Part 2, so let's take a gander at the original first. In week 3 of Big Brother 26, after Cedric won the HOH, Tucker volunteered himself for the block. This isn't something that you should really do, but Tucker is different, and he just does this sort of thing, so whatever. Cedric nominated Tucker, Kenny, and Angela for eviction, with Angela being the house target. Tucker went out and won the veto, so naturally, you would assume that he would use it to save himself, because he's, on the block. Obviously, other people in the house thought this was the case too, so when Cedric was looking for someone to replace Tucker with, he landed on Mackenzie. Now, Mackenzie had the America's veto power, which was basically just a regular veto that she could use to save someone if they were on the block, but instead of the HOH choosing the replacement nominee, America would choose instead. However, if Mackenzie were sitting next to Kenny and Angela, she was likely going to stay, and Chelsea was able to actually convince Mackenzie not to use her power if she was nominated and to save it for next week. So, going into the veto meeting, the majority of the house expected for Tucker to use the veto to save himself, Cedric to nominate Mackenzie in his place, Mackenzie then wouldn't use America's veto to save herself, and then Angela would likely be evicted at the end of the week. But Tucker had a different idea in mind. You see, Tucker learned this week that Quinn also had a secret power, which would basically just allow him to become the HOH in week 4. Tucker was all about taking big shots, so he proposed to Cedric that he should nominate Quinn instead of Mackenzie. However, there was a bit of a concern that A, Quinn would just win the AI arena and earn his safety that way, or B, Angela would still get evicted sitting next to Quinn. So, Tucker came up with the crazy idea to not use the veto on himself, but instead to use it on Angela. This way, the house couldn't just evict Angela over Quinn, and Tucker could also beat Quinn in the AI arena and ensure that Quinn remained on the block come the vote. Now, Cedric was mediumly receptive to this idea, but after sleeping on it, he figured that Quinn would probably have the votes to stay no matter what, so he told Tucker that the plan was off and that he should just use the veto to save himself. Tucker said, "I don't give a f***. I'm still using the veto on Angela." Again, keep in mind, barely anyone knew about this plan. So going into the veto ceremony, people were still expecting Tucker to use the veto on himself. However, once Tucker stood up, it became clear that that wasn't happening because he turned over to Angela and gave her the veto. Everyone was shocked at this. Mackenzie, Quinn, Brooklyn, Leah, Kenny, Joseph, even Angela had no idea that she was about to be saved. It was crazy, but we ain't done yet. Cedric then had to name a replacement nominee, but instead of going with Tucker's plan, Cedric went with his plan, and he nominated Mackenzie. After blindsiding the whole house, it only makes sense that Tucker gets blindsided here, because I guess he forgot about his conversation with Cedric earlier in the day, and he was furious. So he called out Cedric in front of everyone, saying that this was a stupid ass move because there were bigger players with bigger powers, aka Quinn, that he should have taken the shot at. But wait, there's still more. As I mentioned earlier, Mackenzie knew that she was going to be the replacement nominee, and she was prepared to not use her power. However, that was when she was under the impression that Tucker was going to save himself. Now that Tucker used the veto on Angela, Mackenzie was freaked out because she didn't know what the hell was going on. So in the height of all of this confusion, Mackenzie said, screw it. This veto meeting isn't over just yet. I'm using America's veto to save myself. So after all of that, we didn't even get an official replacement nominee. I can say it with the utmost confidence that every single player in that house was blindsided at least one time during that meeting, if not more than once. And I don't know if I can say that about any other veto meeting in the history of the show. So there you have it. In my opinion, the single craziest veto meeting blindside of all time.
I nominated Tucker, Kenny, and Angela. Angela's the house target.
I got a crazy plan. I'm thinking like, bro, take Angela off. I'd stay up. I think we have a chance to get out one of the strongest players in this game this week. It's Quinn.
I want Quinn and his power out of here. So I'm gonna stay up there and try to battle Quinn out.
The veto, use it on yourself. I talked to a bunch of people last night. We don't have the votes.
I don't give a I'm still doing it.
Ooh.
Yeah, we do. It's Big Brother, expect the unexpected. Here you go, Angela.
I had no idea.
You gotta get the competitors out, guys.
Mackenzie, I'm sorry if we'll take your place on the block.
I don't remember.
There was a game plan, and I don't know what the hell just happened.
There's better players in here that you should put up with stronger power-ups, and you just blindsided me, so good luck. Hope you're up here next time battling me in the AI arena. It's a stupid-ass move. This veto meeting is adjourned.
Actually, it's not. I have America's veto, and I'm activating it now.
Oh! I was completely prepared and not use America's veto this week until Tucker takes Angela off the block.
Plan was to put Quinn up because Quinn's got the biggest upgrade in the house, and he told Chemo about it.
Oh my God.
This is Big Brother.
Okay, I hope your Tucker appetite isn't depleted yet, because Tucker came back swinging just 2 weeks later with a second crazy veto meeting. After winning the Week 5 HOH against his rival Quinn, the entire house expected Tucker to go after him. And they were half right. Tucker was going to nominate Quinn because it would be weird if he didn't, but he told Quinn that he was genuinely a pawn and that he would even use the veto to save him as long as he didn't tell anyone that he was, in fact, a pawn. Tucker's intended target was actually Brooklyn, as he saw her as the secret brains in the house, so he nominated Brooklyn, Quinn, and Cam for eviction, with Quinn and Cam being the two pawns. However, Quinn can sometimes have a hard time keeping his mouth shut, and he let it slip to Brooklyn, of all people, that Tucker told them that he was a pawn. Great. Nice job, Quinn. Brooklyn went and reported this to Tucker, who then got pissed off because Quinn couldn't keep it to himself. Then, during the veto competition, which Tucker won by the way, someone had secretly messed with all of Tucker's stuff and thrown his clothes all on the floor. Tucker doesn't like it when people mess with his things, so he was upset and he assumed that Quinn, of course, had to be the one who did it. Even though Brooklyn was actually the one to do it, Tucker couldn't know that, and he told Quinn in front of the whole house that he wasn't using the veto on him and that he better try his ass off to win the AI arena. Things were looking as bad as could be for Quinn. But somehow, Tucker was willing to look the other way still, because he had bigger fish to fry. Tucker had learned that there was an 8-person alliance called the Collective in the beginning of the game, and inside this 8-person alliance, there was a 5-person alliance called the Pentagon that Tucker thought was running the game. The members of this alliance were Brooklyn, Cam, Chelsea, Quinn, and Cedric. However, Cedric was evicted, and Quinn had fessed up to Tucker about this alliance and told them that he had been wanting to flip on them. So he took a step back and looked at the other 3 in the alliance as the biggest threats to his game. But he didn't tell any of these players that this was happening. So, you had Quinn sitting on the block and expecting to stay on the block, and you had Chelsea sitting off the block and expecting to stay safe, which is just a recipe for an excellent blindside. The veto meeting came, and Tucker quickly let everyone know that things were about to get uncomfortable. He exposed both the Collective and the Pentagon alliances to everyone, throwing out 7 to 8 names in the process, and then he shocked the world when he used the veto on Quinn, his public rival in the game, and nominated Chelsea in his place. Chelsea was shocked, Brooklyn was shocked, Quinn was shocked, and Cam was Cam. In all seriousness though, this was one of the most wild and exciting veto meetings I have ever seen, and it had everything you could ask for. The player being saved was blindsided. The player going up was blindsided. Alliances were exposed. Nothing was left on the table, and to top it all off, after Chelsea landed on the block, she started calling out Joseph, of all people, in front of everyone, thinking that he was the one responsible for spilling the beans about the alliances. I'm telling you, this veto meeting had everything, and the fact that Tucker used the veto on Quinn, of all people, is more than enough of a reason for it to land on this list. It might not have topped the craziness of the Week 3 veto meeting, but it's still up there as an all-timer in my opinion.
I got my sights on a number of people. I mean, I'm looking at Quinn, for obvious reasons, but might do something a little crazy.
Have fun up there.
Okay.
You gotta battle for your life in the Ainsley Arena, because I'm still coming after you.
Okay.
This is the veto meeting. I hope everybody is comfortably seated, because it's about to get really uncomfortable in here for a lot of people. There's a lot of liars and a lot of snakes here. So I know all about the collective, all the 8 people, and I know that there's an even tighter knit group, Chelsea, Brooklyn, and Cam. With all of that said, I have decided to use the power of veto on Quinn. And my replacement is Chelsea. Rats.
Really, Joseph?
I didn't tell
You
him. I didn't tell him nothing.
And Quinn?
How did this game flip like this? What am I missing, and who do I need to slap?
Woo! Oh my God, we are so back.
And there we go. Tucker, you crazy dog, I don't even know if you're still in the game. But if you are, maybe wait a couple weeks to have another crazy veto meeting so that this video can thrive and not be marked out of date like last time. Or don't, and give me enough content to make a 3.0. The ball is in your court, I guess. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you're new here, consider subscribing. I, of course, need to give that extra special shout out to all of my YouTube members and patrons who all understand the mission and would also use the veto to save Angela, even if they too were sitting on the block. And, as always, here's a clip for you on your way out.
Nightmerica is amazing. I have a big thing for vampires and for America, so it kind of works out.
I'm not gonna lie, I have the best comic. Kitty Kitty Purr boots down. Come on now, Miss Kitty Girl Purr.
I'm hitting the ground with like a blam.